everyone, and welcome to episode 1 of Top Girl Talk, hosted by yours truly, the Draw, Jacky Rodriguez. And I am joined by my lovely co-host, Miss Jamie Strange.
Hey,
Jamie,
everyone.
how hyped are you that we are finally recording this show tonight?
Listen, this was the whole reason I joined. No, I'm just kidding. I was beyond excited.
This became a tell-all interview real quick.
Exactly.
So, Top Girl Talk is, as some of you may know, or most of you may know, a branch of the Elite POV brand. So, I'm also a co-host of the Elite POV podcast, which is kind of our flagship show of sorts. And in hosting that show, I kind of noticed, and while I do love and appreciate every single one of our viewers, so shout out to you guys, much love. But I did notice there was a gap in viewership when it came to our female audience. So it was important to me and important to Jamie as well to create a space which elevated women's voices in the wrestling fandom. So here's Top Girl Talk.
Welcome to it.
So I want to start off the episode with just a tiny little disclaimer because we will be discussing some topics that do revolve around mental health, and it can be a sensitive topic for some people. So just out of fairness, we will disclose that will be a running theme throughout the show. But just understand that for both Jamie and I, this is a very important and relevant topic, and we do approach this with a lot of reverence and a lot of respect. So, Jamie, I want to talk to you a little bit about how you became a wrestling fan.
That's always my favorite. I love that question. So, back in when I was about 14 years old, well, I grew up on watching it with like friends, family, someone I lost very close to me who I used to watch it with, and so on and so forth. And things like that. And then I started doing backyard wrestling with friends who, like, in the local neighborhood who did, like, trampoline wrestling. And I don't remember exactly how we decided to call me Strange, but it ended up being hit with things, and I enjoyed it. So they ended up calling me James Strange. And that's how that started.
Yeah, I remember you mentioning that in a previous podcast interview, and it popped me so hard because I was like, I wonder how she came up with the name Miss Jamie Strange. And then when you were like, yeah, I used to be a backyard wrestler and I used to get hit with light tubes. I was just like, oh my God, that's like the greatest origin story that I could have never ever predicted.
It was fun because, like, a giant group of our friends all used to do it, and, like, Taylor actually also used to as well, my husband. So it was really fun. It's really great. We just different people at the time, which was hilarious to think about and stuff.
It's always great when you can look at it in hindsight and you're like, okay, well, I didn't break my neck. I didn't end up in the ER or anything like that. So I'm still here.
Once.
So that makes her a badass. So for me personally, I actually grew up with a lot of cousins that watched wrestling. And I always thought it was the silliest, like dumbest thing ever. So like I kind of would like bust their chops about it. And it wasn't till I think it was like late 1999 when the first ever episode of WWF at the time SmackDown debuted. And my cousin wanted to watch it. And my mom kind of put me on chaperone duty because, as we all know, that was the height of the Attitude Era. And there was a lot of shenanigans, we'll call them, going on the show. And she was like, it's your responsibility to sit there and watch the show with him. And if anything like really raunchy comes on, you have to change the channel. You have to like, monitor what he's watching. And I was like, oh my God, like you got to be freaking kidding me. Like I have to sit here and watch this crap. So no lie, it didn't even take a half an hour before I was like, actually, this is kind of like really intriguing. And I think it had something to do with the storyline that was going on with D-Generation X at the time. And there goes my origin story for my penchant for heels, because right out the gate, those were the guys that I like found myself gravitating towards. But by the end of the show, I was completely hooked. And never turned back from there. And I would watch weekly. I think I probably kept up with it even more than he did. Like I made sure to never freaking miss an episode of wrestling. But yeah, so for me, who was the naysayer in the beginning, I ended up becoming the super fan, and now here I am at 33 and still going strong.
Hey, when you find something and you love it, you stick to it. And, it's the escape. It's that great happy place we go to get to like enjoy those moments. I love it. It's like
Yeah,
the one thing I
it's
look forward to every week is sitting down with you guys, like you, Aunt, Kyle, Infinity, Phil, all of you guys, and just watching it, being able to talk it all out while it's going on. The best.
yeah, little side note on that. So the Elite POV team, we are a pretty close-knit group of people. And Jamie is actually our social media coordinator for the Elite POV team. So she's doing a lot of work behind the scenes and kicking a lot of ass behind the scenes. So I'm glad that we're finally able to put her at the forefront and put her in front of a camera so you could see her lovely face and catch her dazzling personality too. So I couldn't have picked a better co-host to do this with, so
I love you, lady.
I love you too. So, did you feel at any point, like, growing up, uh, like, that you were teased or kinda, like, bullied for being a female wrestling fan?
A little bit, just because that's what most girls were not my age at the time were not into at all. It was
Mhm.
all about just going to the mall, texting, going to the movies, and doing
Yeah.
all these crazy things. And I was like, no, I'd rather sit home and watch some wrestling or like go out and do some wrestling. Like, that was like my whole thing. And I got bullied like a little bit by girls here and there for it, but then like I started meeting more slowly who like actually ended up loving wrestling as well. So you kind of like you make some here and there, and you meet some people here and there, and some don't just have the same passions for the same things you do.
Yeah, it was weird because I mean, full disclosure, I didn't have very many friends growing up, if I'm being honest. Um, but any of my like friends that watched wrestling, which were very few and far between, were all guys. And I don't think it was until adulthood did I start meeting like other female wrestling fans. And the hilarious part is when you go to these live shows, and you look out into the audience, the percentage of the audience is becoming bigger and bigger when it comes to female attendance.
Right?
So I'm like, where the heck were all of these people when I was growing up and I was getting like teased, but I was getting primarily teased by other guys.
Yeah.
Like, it was just not like it was not the most appealing thing for them, I wasn't getting asked on a lot of dates as a wrestling fan, I was always wearing the wrestling T-shirts, that's all I wanted to talk about, and, yeah, so it was kind of like, it wasn't until much later on in life where I started being able to connect with other people that were actually, as big of a fan of wrestling as I was.
Yeah, I'll agree. I also like had more guy friends like growing up because like I got along better with them as well as the fact that they all liked the same things. They liked wrestling. So it was like, okay, you're my people.
So what would you say about wrestling was it that really was what grabbed your attention? Like, what about the actual show was like, "I gotta tune into that."
Honestly, just all of it. I remember the very first time I watched wrestling, I think it was I saw The Rock on TV and I just fell in love. Like you can't like not love The Rock. And I started like with Steve Austin and so on and so forth. And it just like it went from there. Just the way that they sell it, they have it such passion and it's like watching a whole storyline that you're so enticed in that you just don't want to end with an episode almost, you know? You just want to keep watching.
Yeah, there's a certain level of spectacle behind it that you really can't get anywhere else. Obviously, you can watch, your dramas, and in the Spanish community, we have something called novelas, which are like, I guess, the English equivalent would be soap operas. And people watch their programs religiously, just because they're so invested in the storylines behind it. And to me, while I do admire the action that goes on in the ring and have ton of respect for what these guys and girls do to put their body on the line. It was always something about the spectacle of the storylines behind the matches that was the most captivating thing to me. It was these larger than life characters. And it was
I
so
agree.
easy to get lost in that and just to get like sucked into it. And, you know, I think it's interesting how a lot of people can identify pro wrestling as a form of escapism. It's like we all have our day-to-day adult lives where, we do the mundane kind of boring stuff, or we got stressors, we got to pay bills, we got to do all of this stuff. And
Yep.
even as far back as a kid, sometimes growing up is hard and there are situations you go through that are not the most ideal. And here's this little thing called pro wrestling, um, that you get to tune into for 2 hours at a time and just literally forget everything.
Everything around you. Yep.
Freaking great. Um, so here's an interesting thing. Obviously, when you and I first started watching pro wrestling, uh, social media wasn't the big thing that it is now. So I mean, there were chat rooms and there were forums and things like that. But of course, at my young age, I was kind of forbidden from going into these spaces because you never knew who you were gonna
Meet.
encounter. Um,
Exactly.
but now with things like, especially like we're predominantly on Twitter, and suddenly you're getting connected to like all these people from all over the world that you probably never would have otherwise met had it
Yep.
not been for the forum of social media. So it's really opened up a space, and I think in particular for us as women to connect with other female wrestling fans. And I just think that that's a really cool thing. So how has your experience been in that forum?
Honestly, I would say the same because like you said, before everything, like I wasn't even allowed a phone until I was about 16 years old, honestly. So, I
Know
wasn't even
that
able to
struggle.
text people. So I mean, I wasn't allowed in chat rooms, things like that. So like with the whole thing with having like Instagram, TikTok, and like I live on Twitter. So I mean, like if it wasn't for that, I feel like I wouldn't have met you, certain other people, and just it's opened the world so many doors for like everything. Like I just have so many people I've met through the wrestling community that I'm just like, I can't imagine life without them. Like now, like, and I probably wouldn't have met them without social media today. Like, it's insane.
Yeah,
Like,
it's incredible because like you think about it, it's like how, in what world or would I have opportunities to travel cross country to California, to go,
right?
across the pond, so to speak, to go to Europe. And it's like, and yet here we are on this platform now talking to people from places that I personally have never even been to
Yeah.
yet and would have never met. And that kind of like segues me a little bit here, to say I tried to think back to you and I in particular. And
Hmm.
I know that we were running in the same circles when it came to shout out to Ant and Kyle and their e-federations.
Yep.
So I knew we were in the same chat rooms and we were kind of interacting there. But for the life of me, and maybe you can fill in the blanks for me, I could not pinpoint the exact moment where you and I started talking more regularly. And it's just one of those situations where it feels like you and I have always been friends.
It really does. Like, I feel like I've known you for years, it's so funny. And like, we talk literally every morning, like with a good morning, like, hey, how you doing? Like, we always check on each other, like, just to see how
Mhm.
one another's doing. It's incredible. But I'm trying to think. Like, I just feel like we had seen each other so many times just in passing, like through Kyle's EFED and Ant's EFED, and then like probably like a few others, like heels here and there. And I think we were like, okay, why are we not talking to one another? Like, we're everywhere at the same
Yeah,
places.
and it's like, like the step-by-step thing, okay, we'll follow each other on Twitter and then shoot each other an occasional DM just to say like, just to say what's up.
Yeah.
And, obviously we're living in two different ends of the country. And had it not been for social media or for pro wrestling, we probably would not
Would
be
not
sitting
know each
here
other.
having this conversation right now.
Facts. Honestly, we would not.
But yeah, that escaped me so bad. And I was like, this is how you can tell the mark of a true friendship is when you can't even pinpoint the exact moment where you guys came together. It's like, I don't know, she was just always there.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying in my head. I'm like, well, she was always there, and I know it was like back in June is when we like started like talking like every day. And then it's been consistently every day since June. I feel like.
Yeah, now it's like we get to the point where we're sending each other like, okay, here's a picture of my cat to to cheer
Yeah,
you, which
here's a
you
video of
did get
my
to
cat.
see a
Feel
little
better.
glimpse of one of Jamie's adorable cats making a cameo on the show today. So
Yep.
so I want to kind of take it back a little bit to wrestling as a form of escapism and how that pertains to mental health. So mental health is a really important topic. It's something that on my personal Twitter I talk about as often as possible because I know you will agree with me when I say it's important for us to end the stigma and have open conversation and open dialogue about mental health. So, I want to know from your aspect some of the ways where pro wrestling has been a positive effect on your mental health.
Honestly, it's been like the most positive like on my mental health this entire year because I stopped watching wrestling a couple years back when I lost somebody really close to me, and I just lost my whole like drive and passion for it, and just didn't really want to watch it. And then Taylor watches AEW all the time, and like I just started watching a little bit here and there, and it ignited my passion back into it. Like I was like, why did I stop watching? Why did I not? Why did I do this? Like it made me realize like I could get lost and escape and actually just enjoy myself into it again and just be that person I was back then when I was a little lost, you know?
Yeah, it's like it always brings you back. It's like an old friend, an old familiar friend.
Exactly.
Um, Obviously without getting, into too much detail, I will say, growing up was not easy. There was a lot of tumultuous times in my childhood, and I think that I just naturally gravitated towards pro wrestling because it created an entire new world for me, and it was a way for me to be somewhere else for 2 hours and just like, be captivated by these characters. And over time, as you're watching, you start to sort of identify with some of the people that you're seeing on TV every week. If you're kind of like a misfit kid, you're seeing some of these misfit kids on your TV screen, every week, and you're looking at them and you're like, wow, like that resonates with me. And you know, just the whole concept of, especially with your baby faces where it's like they have, the struggle and they're working towards overcoming it. And when you see
Yep.
them get their moment, it's like this moment of like joyous redemption for you because you're over here, like you're sharing in their victories. And it kind of feels like, man, despite all the shit I'm going through right now, like it kind of gives you a sense of hope in a
Yep.
way. You feel that?
Yep. You like just connect with them and like just everything along with it. That's what I love about it. Just it's kind of why like I fell in love with CM Punk with the whole like straight edge everything. Like I respect him so much.
Yeah, I mean, and it's like, and as you age and things change, it kind of evolves and the meanings of it change, but the core of it is still intact. And it's like, for me now, obviously I'm an adult, I have a job to go to every day, I have my mundane routine stuff. I have I live with anxiety and depression, and there are times where it's just like it's really hard to get into a positive headspace. And then, there I am on Wednesday nights now, and now Fridays as well.
Yeah.
But mostly, primarily on Wednesday nights, watching wrestling that I absolutely am just captivated with and enjoy so much now. And I get to do it with such amazing people. So
Yep.
it just creates this little sense of community, and it's just fantastic. And it's nice to know that, I started watching when I was 12 years old. So that's about 21 years.
Oh my wow. Yeah.
Yeah, of using wrestling as a way to break away from whatever is getting me down in my everyday life.
Yep. I
So
understand. I feel that on a personal level.
So now we get to have a little bit of fun because we did put out a question of the day. to our elite POV Twitter followers, and we went ahead and asked them how they felt pro wrestling positively affected their mental health. So we got a nice little list here
Okay.
of different responses. So I don't know if you have your list handy because I would like to like kind of go back and forth with these a little bit because some of these answers were actually really interesting.
Yeah, let me open it up.
So I will start off with Black Baymax 8 says pro wrestling has helped me in many ways. It's been a source of happiness, a cure for whatever funk I'm in, a stress reliever, and a way to meet some of the best friends I could ever have, which is more or less what we've been
Been
kind of
saying the whole
calling out.
time.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's like it's not just the fact that the show is fun as hell. It's like, it's the people that you get to meet along the way.
The way and the people it draws you to. Yep. The connections. So we have one here from Jonathan Dobro, 38. I was lost down, didn't know what to do once I lost my mom almost 3 years ago. My friends and pro wrestling saved my life. It let me get some joy when my life when all I could see was darkness. So I can relate to that one very much so, Jonathan. I also lost my mom, and I'm sorry to hear that you also lost your mom about almost 3 years ago, next year coming up, which I hate to think about. But that's the whole reason why I kind of stopped watching, was between that and my brother, and like just lost two of the closest people to me, and that was the whole reason why I started watching. So it takes me out of that dark place, just being able to sit there and unwind with everybody and just hanging out. It's my go-to. It's my happy place. I love it.
So Martin LMNT says it's basically an escape from the real world for me. The world can be such a negative, horrible place at times, but when I go to or watch wrestling, it gives me the ability to forget for a few hours. And I think that this is going to be a sort of theme with a lot of these answers because this is kind of like the thread that ties all of us together as fans, which I think is really, really cool.
So we have one from my alter ego. It has. When my grandmother passed away, I watched a weekend of independent pro wrestling called The Collective. It got me through the rough times. Well, I'm going to call you 4-star because that's how I know you. But I am very sorry to hear about your grandmother's passing. And I actually never got a chance to watch The Collective, but I had heard that was fantastic from you, I feel like, before. But I'm glad that it was able to help you get you through those rough times, because we all know what it's like to be in a dark place and just needing that unwind.
CMS Calvert, what's up, Calvert? Says it gives me a fandom I can get behind and be knowledgeable about, something I care about and can be good at. I've made a few friends through wrestling. I may not be included all the time, but it's still something that I believe in. So to that, if it wasn't for pro wrestling, I would not be podcasting right now. I wouldn't be doing all this cool, fun stuff. It did give me a bit of a platform to speak publicly, which is something that I just enjoy doing, and having a topic that I love as much as pro wrestling to do it about, can't get better than that.
So I have one here from Ghostless. There have been times my mental health would leach into my progression or to my progress in the gym in a negative way. And I would see hard work wrestlers would put into their matches to give us amazing shows has helped inspire me to fight through. Wrestlers are truly inspiring people. So I totally get what you mean by that. Mental health can definitely mess you up when it comes to going to the gym. There are some days where like the gym is like my happy place, and that's where I like to go for my mental health sometimes. But then there are times where it just, like you just said, it ruins you in a negative way and you're not able to do it. And just seeing what the wrestlers do on a daily, what they go through, makes you realize you're more than capable of it. So you got this, Ghostless.
Buffington Steele says Dynamite is like a stress relief. The rest of the week really does feel all downhill after watching an episode. It must release all the right endorphins or something. After wrestling, depression is like a legitimate thing. And I think obviously when you're watching week to week, it's like, oh, it's over and now there's no more wrestling this week. But I felt it even more, and you can back me up on this one because you went to a couple live shows this year.
Yeah.
And when you have these shows to look forward to, you're all hyped, it's great. And then when it's like there's no more shows this year, suddenly you're just like, oh, like it's like such a bummer. It's like the withdrawals of going to these events.
Right? You just want to go to more. You're just like, wrestling, the withdrawals. So we have one here from Kimmy that says, it's an escape from life, and when other people left my life, wrestling was always there. That I can also agree with, because I've had a lot of people come and go in life, and it's been really tough for me, and wrestling was the one thing that was always consistent. Never left me. That and some Oreos.
Give me a bag of Lay's potato chips and we're even on that one.
And a bar of chocolate. Yum.
So Edward Stein says, I've been bullied my entire life from friends and family. Wrestling is my safe place, and watching wrestling brings me joy. Well, for starters, screw those people. No one likes a bully. But I will say relatable again, because like I said in the beginning of the show, I was kind of the outcast kid growing up, and wrestling was something like it was a place where I felt like I belonged, and it created that really positive and uplifting space where it was just like, okay, I can get away from, you know, the negativity that's happening every day when I go to school or what have you. And so, yes, Edward, relatable.
Agreed, actually, there. So I got Moose McThunder here. The community of, I know, I liked it. That's why I had to read it out loud. The community of fans. I was in the hospital at the beginning of August. I wasn't in a great place. Went to the first Rampage as I got hired to do some film work for Darby's Rampage Twitter. It was like I found my people, if that makes sense. I totally understand what you mean, because we were just talking about how, like, if it wasn't for social media, we wouldn't have found all of these amazing groups of people. And then that's, I'm sorry to hear about your unfortunate incident in the hospital, but at the same time, at least you got hired to do some work for Darby's Twitter, which is really amazing.
How freaking badass is
that? That's cool. That's what I was about to say. That's the neatest thing ever.
I want that on my resume.
Right? That's what I'm saying.
It's like go to an employer, like, yeah, I worked on Darby's, Twitter here.
Yep.
And they're like, I have no idea what you're talking about, but okay. Case Quest says, I think wrestling can teach you a sort of spiteful tenacity in the vein of, this is horrible and unfair, but I'm not going to give up. I'm going to show them, scratch and claw, and crawl through broken glass to last even another second in this fight, and that really helps. Which, again, goes back to what we were talking about earlier, where it's like, these stories of, overcoming adversity are just the most uplifting part of being a wrestling fan. And shout out to Hangman Adam Page, because if he hasn't had the most storied climb and ascend to the top of the ladder, Full Gear is happening this weekend. Hangman Adam Page for AEW World Heavyweight Champion. Just side note there.
It's happening, everybody. You'll see.
All right. I think you're up next.
Okay, so I was at Purple Rain, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay. I watch it when I am stressed. It definitely helps my mental state by focusing on something else. By the time I am done watching it, I'm in a better state of mind. I think we can all agree with that. I feel like you sometimes could go into having a terrible day, and the one thing you look forward to is the wrestling, and you go into watching it, and you realize, my day just suddenly got better because I can get lost into this and have a good time and follow through with it. And if you have a group of amazing people to watch it with too, that always makes it 10 times better as well.
All right, so I think we're gonna do this one as the last one, and this came from Jerseyed or Jersey Ed. I'm really sorry if I'm doing this wrong. Jerseyed 1974. AEW got me through a divorce and loneliness compounded by the pandemic. Sad or not, I so look forward to Dynamite every week for 2 hours. I was lost in the storytelling. So the pandemic did a number on all of us, and feeling really just confined to being home all the time and not being able to go out and just not being able to resume a normal life. Also, add on to the fact that, people are getting sick. You're hearing in the news every day, people are passing. And wrestling was the one constant throughout the pandemic where it's just like, we're a big AEW fans. AEW never stopped running a show. And it was like, it gave you this feeling of everything is going to be okay. Even if it's just for these 2 hours,
Yep.
you don't have to think about, all the chaos that's going on outside.
Just gave us that safe haven.
So, yep, co-signed on that incredibly the pro wrestling single-handedly got me through the worst of the pandemic, honestly.
Yeah, agreed.
So we're gonna wrap this episode up. And I want to know, Jamie, where can people find you on your social media?
So you guys can follow me at Twitter, Twitch, and Instagram, all at Miss Jamie Strange.
And Jamie is also a gaming streamer. So
Yes.
drop your Twitch.
It is twitch.tv / Miss Jamie Strange. So please come check it out. I'm a variety gamer. I play a ton of different games every other day.
And she's great. Her stream is always the most fun. So you can find me on Twitter at LoveYouMake24. You can find me on Instagram at JacksTheDrawPOV. You can also follow, again, our flagship show, Elite POV, on Twitter and Instagram. We have a fantastic merch shop courtesy of our graphic designer, Infinity Gaming 13.
Pay the man.
Pay the man. ElitePOVmerch.com. You can find us every Thursday and 7 p.m. on Twitch. So you go to twitch.tv/ElitePOV. And that is where you will find our live podcast where I co-host with Ant and Phil. And now our newest co-host, Kyle Masters. And we also have a TikTok. I want to throw that out there to you because our lovely Miss Jamie Strange runs that. So where can you find us on TikTok?
It is Elite POV Clips.
So, and we are coming to you now from our Elite POV Patreon. This is episode 1, which you will be enjoying for our special intro rate at the $1 Patreon tier. But going forward, to see all this great Top Girl Talk content, you can subscribe at our $5 tier. And I'm telling you guys right now, we have a lot of excellent content coming to you. Elite POV, we are looking to be your top brand and your top source for all things all elite wrestling.
You guys, this is just the start. Just wait until we get into our next video.
A lot of great things coming. So be sure to tune in. And until next time, Top Girls.
Top girls.
Out.
Out.